welcome back to Homesteads and Homeschools. I'm your host, still here with you, the Liberty Hippie, coasting you through episode number 105, which means the show notes you can find at homesteadsandhomeschools.com/105. My guest today is a farmer, not like a homestead type farmer that has his market garden and, canning all his beans. And he grows pork on a fairly large scale. When I say fairly large scale, I mean large scale. He's got some big stuff going on. But he came on today and we talked about all the things in sort of this industrial food market, and all the things that kind of spill out of it, and ways that we can talk to people about that topic. Because I used to do a show with Nick Picone over there at Peace Freaks, and we used to get into things about like environmental aspects of things and how that is impacted by the government. And food is another big one, right? Food faces huge regulations and huge government interference, and people don't realize it. And so we had that conversation today for you all to check out. So without further ado, let's go plant those seeds of liberty with my guest, Mr. Kirk.
This world is big and wild and half insane. Take me where real animals are playing. Just a dirty old shack with a hound dog's bark that we called our home. I wanna be back there among the cats and dogs and the pigs and the goats on Animal Farm.
My guest today is Mr. Kurt. He's out there doing some farming. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but just something to talk about. I think he's got some stuff to share and some ideas to everybody can glean something from, maybe. So we'll see. Kurt, thank you for giving me your time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem, man. So kind of just a basic. You're a hog farmer. How many do you go by heads? And I know you do heads for cows. Are pigs heads as well, or?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So we finish out because I buy my pigs when they're 20 pounds now, and so I finish out 2,500 head myself, and then I farm with Dad, and he finishes out 5,000, so about 7,500 a year. So we're decent sized.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, so what does that mean? Like how big is that in the grand scale of things? Because I mean,
Well, we do all natural, antibiotic free, indoor-outdoor access, so they're not in the confinement buildings, and so we're really big for that. We're probably the second biggest producers in the country that do it the way we do. But as far as like conventional, like confinement style, those guys will farm like 30,000 head a year would be a small one for that. So
okay,
yeah.
And then you say you get them when they're 20 pounds. How old is that usually?
That's 5 weeks old. I get them the day they're weaned. So
okay,
yeah.
All right. So did you're working with Dad there? Did he always do it the sort of natural, antibiotic free, that route, or was that something he took?
Yeah, they call it all natural is kind of the best terminology. It's what like Butcher Box, Chipotle, and Whole Foods. It's the meat that they sell. But yeah, no, we used to raise conventional in confinement buildings. At that time, we farrowed sows, and so we did the whole from breeding to finishing on our farm at that time. And then in the early 2000s, there was a hog market crisis. It hit 8 cents a pound, and so Dad was going to go bankrupt and sell the farm, and he ended up switching over to this system where now I get paid based on the corn and soybean meal price market. So basically my margins stay the same no matter what, so long as I keep my death loss low. So It's a stable market.
Interesting. So you say there was, when was that, the crisis?
Yeah, I think it was like early 2000s. I think the year 2000, if I remember right.
Yeah, I feel like that everything kind of right around in there.
I
Something.
was born in
Something happened.
'97, so that was a little too. I was a little too young at that point.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So you saying you're getting it was 8 cents a pound.
Yep.
What do you mean? What do you mean by eight? That can't be right, right? What does that mean?
Yeah, they were, and that's what. There was a lot of guys who ended up just putting down their pigs because it costs more money to feed them than they were going to possibly make. So you might as well just stop the loss that day. Luckily, Dad, he just stopped feeding them protein, and he was able to wait out the market till it bounced back up. But yeah, that it was.
Yeah.
I just sold a boar last month that made it through the cracks, and I got 9 cents a pound. And yeah, I lost a lot of money on that pig.
So how is that? Is that live weight?
No, I think that's typically carcass weight. Like I said, I don't sell my pigs that way anymore, so it's hard for me to remember. But yeah, I think that's hanging weight.
Okay, it's wild, right? Because like you go to the store and you're getting $1.99 on sale. It's crazy. Do you have any idea how that happens? Like where that markup comes from, or how?
Typically it comes from just the plants. It's especially bad in the cattle industry. There's only 4 major packers for cattle, and pigs aren't that much better. But like this spring, cattle farmers were averaging, I think, $8 a head profit.
Wow.
While the packer was averaging 700. And so there was like a big lawsuit with the cattle industry, and I don't know that much about it, but yeah, that's what the cattle industry desperately needs change with it. Something like Massey's Prime Act would have been really good for them, but
yeah, well, not always how things work.
No.
So is it? You said there's like 4 major packers there. Is that the same kind of for on the pork side of things? You guys have like a limited number of packing facilities, or?
Yeah, it's getting better with niche market. Like mine is a small packer, and so they only they're not a very big packer at all comparatively, and so there's a little bit more competition with hogs than with beef.
Gotcha. And what do you know? Like, why is there a dearth of these facilities that do this? Like, why is it so few?
Mostly because the regulation is insane. If you run the numbers on how much it costs to get just a small time packing house, just for your small community, it's going to be $1 million automatically to be able to pass USDA inspections. There's guys who have started doing old refrigerated trailers, and you can for $100,000, I think you can order one of those made, but then you're going to be doing a very limited amount of beef a week. But if you wanted any kind of an operation, yeah, $1 million off the top. And so it's just, and the packers, then they have a lot of sway with the USDA and all that. So,
and that's kind of what I figured, but I wasn't sure. I mean, it makes sense in the way that things typically work.
Yeah. It all started with Upton Sinclair, and here we are. and nobody draws that connection either, even in ag, and it's so infuriating to me.
Yeah, and I one of my friends, Nick Cohn, we used to do Free Markets Green Earth together. He had pointed out to me that it was a work of fiction.
Oh
right?
yeah,
I didn't realize that until like later in life. Like when I was reading that book in I forget whether I think it was college. It's not presented as a work of fiction. It's presented as like this is real life. And it's like I don't know. It just is pretty standard, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
And if you tell people that, like, I know Michael Malice talks about how Upton Sinclair never even went inside a packing house, And I've told people that recently, and they can't believe it. It just blows their mind.
Yep. Oh man. Wonder. Yeah. So you wonder what things we're doing now that they'll look back on in 50 years and just take it as truth, and it's just But
Yeah, I made that point the other day. I said, just think about how much propaganda our kids are going to be taught in school about coronavirus, because only one team is going to write that history book, and then think those same exact liars wrote our history books.
Yep. I've seen some of it. Our two youngest are in public school, and yeah, I'm in Georgia, so it's not like too bad, but they're still bringing home, little coloring books. What's healthy, what's not healthy. Stay away, play in small groups, wear your mask. Like, oh gosh, man, it's just.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was pulled out of school pretty young, and I was homeschooled, so I got to miss at least most of that.
yeah, it's I don't know. Our older two are homeschooled, and we'll pull the younger ones out as they mature a little bit, because there's some stuff there, but it's crazy. But all right, so I'm interrupting the show today. It's got to be important. Trust me, it is. I'm up here every week speaking freely, encouraging you all to espresso yourself, having mind-changing conversations, planting little rebellion seeds that will grow to giant pumpkins of persuasion. Why am I up here? Because I love to run my mouth. Because I believe in free, uncensored speech. That's why. Because without the innate right to speak my mind and gather at will, the ability to communicate and exchange ideas disappears. And I can't think of a better way to exchange these ideas than over a delicious cup of coffee with the people that matter most. So together, with John Odermatt over at Finding Freedom, we've teamed up to create Run Your Mouth Coffee, to bring you the tantalizing coffee you need to get the uncensored speech flowing. Check us out at rymcoffee.com and use promo code Homestead to get 10% off your first order. That's rymcoffee.com, promo code Homestead. You were just a squirt when your dad moved over to the natural side of things?
Yeah, that would have been in like 2005 we switched over, I think, because it took a long time to get the buildings converted over, and we had to fill in our manure pits and cut doors into all the buildings and stuff. So
all right, and so I guess that was a process then. Were there a lot of people doing that at that time? I feel like it's big now, but I feel like it was probably unheard of.
Oh no,
that long ago.
People were making fun of us in the area and kind of saying that it was pretty stupid for Dad to be dumping money into a dying industry, just about. And it's kind of one of those things that it's bringing back out of a free market into agriculture that they've been missing. Is now the small guys are able to compete against the big guys. I'm not having to worry about, a major corporation moving in, and, so I'm able to, and it affects our crop production as well. We farm 350 acres, and so we're able to play a little bit above our weight as far as bidding farms goes, and as far as goes, just because this niche market is allowing us to make money on a small farm.
So that's you run your pigs on 350 acres, or are you doing like
corn
crops as well? Okay.
Yeah, we're continuous corn. So
what does that mean, continuous corn?
Just kind of an odd thing, because most guys, they rotate corn and soybeans just because the nitrogen. We're kind of losing a lot of money doing corn every year, because then we have to put on more anhydrous, but we need all the bedding for our pigs, and so we would need a couple hundred more acres for us to be able to rotate. So
the natural side of things, when did you get involved?
I got out of the Army in 2018, so about right after that, then I came back and put up 3 more hoop buildings and started.
Have you seen it change, just in terms of either what counts as natural, or what's defined as natural, or different practices that have come into?
Yeah, there's a lot of play where people will call their pork all natural, and it's not, and so it's important to look for like a third party authentication. stamp like ours we get inspected by Certified Humane. And so then that's a third-party company that comes in, and I get audited every year. They have to look at all my buildings and all my records to make sure that I'm actually playing ball. But there are big companies that will just put all natural on it, but they don't put any sort of authentication on there, so it doesn't.
Interesting.
It's kind of false advertising, but it's not.
Would that stand up at all? I mean, like, if somebody called them on it, could anybody do anything?
Yeah, I think it would, just because of how ag works, and I don't think there's any legal definition behind what all natural is. So really, it's just residing on that stamp.
Gotcha. Interesting. Are there other third parties out there that verify?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of them. I just know ours, but I know there are several of them, and that's one thing that I do like to preach to people is, when I talk about deregulating agriculture, and especially the meat packing industry, I point out, well, I'm already abiding by stricter standards than humane standards because a third party private business is holding me accountable to the market. And so it's just a good way to show that free markets do regulate themselves.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We always, you hear about it, right? Like, well, you got to have somebody regulate medicine. You got to have somebody do this, do that. And really these like kind of third party entities that could do that,
Yep.
And if I wanted to learn about, whoever it is, their humane, whatever you call them.
Yep.
If I wanted to learn about it, I'm sure they have a website and a definition, and I can see what it is that, what does this stamp actually mean? So it's, have you run into much of, like, when you're dealing with other farmers and stuff, are they on board with some of that? Or are they kind of, I don't know, where are they in terms of, deregulating things or having sort of somebody else verify things outside of, I don't know, USDA or whatever?
Well, a lot of farmers really don't like what I do. So that's why I kind of try to keep that part hidden when I'm on Twitter and stirring other stuff up. But yeah, because like Chipotle, they ran a big anti-confinement farming ads back in the day. And so farmers take publicity really hard, any bad publicity. And so they really don't like Nyman, who I sell to, mostly just because it talks smack about conventional farming, and that's heresy. So it's kind of like a little Gestapo that farmers have, where you're never allowed to, say, well, I think that this farming practice is bad.
That's interesting, because I can totally see how that could happen. Yep. Right? It makes sense, right?
Well, and it's like even in during the 2009 swine flu, there was a hog market crash because people were scared to eat pork because of the name of the H1N1, and so that's how easily affected ag markets are, and so they are really just you don't dare say anything bad about it.
Oh man, yeah. Think about that, right? So somebody says there's E. coli on the lettuce, and nobody eats lettuce for like 3 weeks. It's like, man, yep. Guys, come on, this is, All right. So you, are there other like natural like people that farm like that, like around you, or do you?
Yeah, I talked one buddy into doing it, and it's especially lucrative for young guys to start doing this. So a lot of my younger friends my age because there's no way for a kid to just start out farming anymore unless you've got a lot of daddy's money. And so it's about the lowest dollar number of an investment you have to make doing what I'm doing for the fastest turnaround and a good return on investment. And so it's kind of a good stepping stone for other avenues.
So is it just the that you can turn around and sell it for more, or is there something else to it that makes it more lucrative or easier for people starting out?
Well, pigs just don't have a huge investment cost comparatively. As far as buildings, you don't have a terrible investment or machinery and land use for it. And typically, like with hog farming, you can work out pretty sweet deals on. You could get somebody to deed you the 1 acre you need for your building site if you'll exchange the manure from that building site to that farmer. So that's a fairly common deal to make.
Interesting. I never thought about that.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard of a lot of guys doing that. And there's guys who they put up hog buildings just for the manure. That's how much manure is worth. So
that's crazy. Like, and it makes sense. Who would think, right, that the refuse would be just as valuable as anything
that's
else?
One thing that, and I don't have a lot of beef with vegans, but that's one thing that a lot of them miss is that you need manure to fertilize the plants. So if we do away with industrial farming, then that's going to be another hurdle for us to jump, because that's not an easy problem there.
It's that's one of those things. It's not unseen because people see it, but it's like they're in the background, right? All these we can make this rule, we can make these regulations, and you don't think about all the things down the road that this is going to affect.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think about that. I suppose you could use like synthetic stuff, but I don't see.
Yeah.
I don't see that contingency embracing Monsanto with open arms. Could be wrong. I don't know. But so one of the things on your Twitter there, you had the Farmarchy thing. You know, you talk to farmers about sort of kind of, liberty-based ideas of things, of kind of free markets and kind of deregulation and that side of things. How does that work in the farm world of things?
It's really tricky because the one good thing about farmers is every farmer is economically literate. Just because every farmer has to be their own marketer, and you have to at least understand market functions. And a majority of farmers, like 99%, are openly capitalists. They truly believe in capitalism. And it's infuriating because all of them will tell you all day long about how we can't socialize healthcare for all of the reasons that you and I would state. And then you ask them, well, why can't we do that with farming? And it blows their mind. They can't process that, or they'll just say, well, it'll never happen. Or a lot of it is the monopolization factor. And that's one thing I really try to harp on. And there has never been a free market monopoly. And you can get them at least 90% there. And but people really take the subsidies hard when you start hitting on them with that.
Yeah. So, I'm under the understanding, right? When I don't know much about, conventional farming and the nitty gritty of it, but, how do you know, like number wise, like how many farms are on government money? Right, like I assume you got it at that price at 8 cents a pound at whatever, you at low ball, you've got to be getting help from somewhere.
Oh yeah,
is that like
a majority? Like this past year, 40% of farm income came from subsidies, and like this year alone, I know just me, I got $70,000 in subsidies, and that's a small number compared to the big guys. And so, yeah, it's absolute socialism with farming. And then it's especially frustrating, and they publish who gets subsidies and how much they get every year. And so then I'll post something about being against subsidies, and here comes all of them just copy and paste. I hope you don't take subsidies. Well, I'm against subsidies because I believe in capitalism. I know I have to take them because I understand capitalism. I can't just put myself $70,000 short of my neighbor when we're in competition with each other. He's getting that money either way.
No, yeah. And like, you got to imagine like telling people that, like I don't know. It would be a very difficult conversation. I imagine.
And farmers are either one end of the spectrum or the opposite. They either believe that we need to completely abolish subsidies, which is pretty common with farmers, or they're completely, we need to be 100% subsidies. It seems like they just cannot imagine.
Yeah, it's got to be a scary thing, right? Like, because I mean, you've seen it, and you've branched out and gone a different way because you guys recognize that this old method is flooded, and
oh yeah,
I can't do it. You just can't do it anymore. If you cut subsidies, goodness, the amount of people that have to find something else or move into these sort of other kind of niche markets, it's wild.
Yeah, and that's what we need a market correction bad in agriculture, and we need to let the market function. There are people who have been farming for 20 years who should have gone out of business 20 years ago. And that's what that 8 cents a pound was that meant guys who aren't efficient need to either become efficient or find another business to be in. And that's not something easy to tell somebody, but then again, we're tasked with feeding the world. And so that's more important to me than whether your 5th generation farm lives on another generation. And it's hard to say that without sounding like an ass, but
it is, but it's tough, like unions, teachers unions, like, as far as I'm concerned, they do a great job at keeping crappy teachers employed. Right. And who does that hurt in the end? And farm subsidies are sort of kind of the same way. They keep the bad farmer in, and it doesn't let new people come in that might have a new idea, a new lens, and do something unique and work, or, it gets in the way of things and really kind of buggers things up. But have you found anything that really kind of works in terms of getting those conversations going or making them a little more fruitful than they otherwise could be?
Mostly, I just, like I said earlier, I ask the person to explain to me why socialized medicine doesn't work. And then basically we can come to a point of agreement on that 9 times out of 10. And then I just mostly try to quote Murray Rothbard in the progressive era as best as I can. I mean, he had the best, the absolute best. It's hard to read that book and not be completely mind blown about agriculture. And so that's a lot of people and a lot of farmers, they have way too short of a memory on the subject. And so they only look back to the 1980s, which in the 1980s, we had a horrible ag market crash that came from the Federal Reserve artificially inflating, the ag economy in the 1970s, and we had a huge boom economy. And then in the 1980s, a couple of big contracts overseas got cut, etc. And I want to say 1 in 7 farms went bankrupt. And that's when you started to see you'll see pictures of land auctions where farmers would refuse to bid on land. And that's where we got in a majority of the new subsidies that we have. And so farmers, they look back on that and they think, well, that must have been the free market. And so then I say, no, we have to go back, 70 years before that. And that's where we messed up. We needed a decentralized ag economy. And so once you start talking about decentralization, you can at least convince people of your argument, and they actually start to listen. Then it comes down to, they say, well, that will never happen. And most of the time people will agree with me at that point. It's just, they think, well, no, that these big guys, they won't ever let that happen. And I don't know, that's not a good enough reason for me not to quit fighting for it,
Yeah. Well, you gotta keep trying little by little, and I think it's one domino at a time, and who knows, but I don't know. Anything else? I know anything people that I don't know. Do you have any ideas for like people that aren't involved in sort of the larger side of farming to, I don't know necessarily the word help, but to kind of, I guess, help fix the sort of system that is? Is there anything people on the outside can do?
Mostly just fight for good people in Congress, I guess.
Yeah.
Like Thomas Massey's Prime Act, like I said, was amazing. That was the perfect bill to introduce, and we got to keep getting guys in there and keep pushing. I'm getting ready to buy a bunch of copies of Murray Rothbard's The Progressive Era and just start giving them out. Just start getting the propaganda flowing, I guess. And ag, it's kind of a weird one because not many people think about the ag economy or how regulated it is. And yet that's one of the biggest effects on everybody's lives. And so part of it is to just getting people to care. Just start telling people, hey, it's pretty ridiculous what's happening to beef farmers right now. And you just type in beef market collusion, and you'll get all kinds of articles about what's going on with the major packers.
It's crazy. Like you just said, right? Like this impacts everyone, every single person. Like that, it doesn't matter who you are or what you eat. Like it impacts you like beyond anything, and nobody thinks twice about it. Nobody knows anything about it.
And if you ask anybody from at least a small town about their grandparents, everybody had space that they paid for at their local meat locker, and everybody went and they bought a half a beef from the farmer down the road, and they had that hanging up and stored in the meat locker in their small town, and that's where they went and got their meat for the week. And our ag economy used to be so decentralized, and then there was also that connection, that farm to plate connection, where people actually network directly with the farmer, and I think we missed that a lot.
And it gives you a lot of, it does it when you have that connection. It gives you so much more buy-in, like with everything that's happening. You're if you go out of business, I'm concerned because that's the guy I get my cows from. That's the guy I get my pork from. Like that's not just on this styrofoam platter at Kroger that whatever. So
yeah, and anybody listening, reach out to small farmers that are doing farming the way that you like, and especially pig farmers. You can get pretty sweet deals on pork if you know one. Go and talk to them, and you can get, we have pigs all the time that we can't sell, that either we have to butcher for people we know or whatever, belly bust. So you can make a sweet deal on that, and farmers are always looking for ways to make money cash. So
yeah. Can you sell pigs on your own?
So I can sell you the live pig, and then I can shoot it, and then you have to take it home and butcher it yourself, and that's legal. But if I help with the butchering process at all, then it's illegal.
It becomes illegal.
And so it's so ridiculous. And like I butchered 5 pigs this year. I'm getting ready to butcher one of my calves tomorrow. And my family's been butchering our own meat for 100 years, 200, however long. Nobody has ever gotten sick. And I give meat away to all my friends. Nobody has ever gotten sick. And we use the most primitive equipment in our dirty shop. And people still are just terrified that without the government there, everybody would be dropping dead from meat. That's one thing I like to ask people, because they say, well, if we unregulated meat, then all these big companies would just start poisoning their customers because there's no regulation. That doesn't sound like a good business plan. I don't think you're going to get repeat customers.
Really. Nope, not at all. Not at all. Oh man. Yeah, it's something.
Yep. But I do think that agriculture, and that's one thing I'm trying to lead the move on. Like, I'm in a group chat with 20 different farmers my age who are all anarchists as well. And actually, all of agriculture is very libertarian to begin with, just because a part of the job is tax evasion. Basically, you can't farm unless you're doing have a very good accountant. And so then there's so much of that, and we do see we operate a lot of the time in a free market, and so farmers are typically more liberty minded. They all own their own property. They all are good Second Amendment. So I'm truly trying to lead the charge and trying to get agriculture more libertarian, more free market, because that's where a lot of this, I mean, the reason why we have subsidies came from Nixon in the 1980s, because Iowa has the first caucus. And he said, I don't want us to ever lose Iowa again. And so we do have a lot of pull, even though it's we're only 1% of the country. Farmers do have a lot of pull and politically.
Yep. Well, and it is, I think there's just something about, growing food and doing there's something about it that's just, I don't know.
Well, that's what
I think
when I got out of the Army, everyone said I was crazy for wanting to farm. And I just explained it. I don't know if you've seen The Gambler with Mark Wahlberg, the movie. In there, he has this spiel about how he wants to make enough money that he's got screw you money, where you have enough money in the bank, you can tell anyone screw you. Well, I kind of explained it that farming, it's screw you freedom, because I don't have a boss. I'm selling straight to the market. So I'm uncancelable. Nobody can tell me what to do, what time to wake up or anything. So I got screw you freedom. And that's kind of what led me down the rabbit hole. Was I realized how much I do love freedom. And
at the end of the day, you have food.
Yeah, exactly.
You have food. If somebody really wants to put the screws on you, guess what? Like, I can still feed myself, and that's,
We've got 3-4 freezers full of meat from ourselves, and just that level of security, even if, it hit the fan tomorrow, well, we've got months of food here that we can, and we're self-sustained already. We have generators, we have all the stuff here just from farming being the nature of the beast, that we're already self-sufficient in a way, which is nice.
Yeah. All right, man. I don't want to keep you all night. But yeah, tell people where we can find you. I know where you sell your meat or what, but where can people go to find you and anything about you or whatever you want to share?
I mostly just post on Twitter at 4-Finger Death Punch. That's because I lost a finger in a farming accident, so that's my little. But I'm Farmarchist on there, and that's really the only social media I really use. And then if you want to try some of my meat, you can do it. I think Amazon now has Amazon Fresh. They carry Niman Ranch pork, or Butcher Box or Whole Foods. They all carry Niman Ranch. I'm warning you, though, it's not cheap meat. I mean, we get paid good money for a reason on these pigs, but it's
a lot more work. A lot more goes into it. You can't just keep it in a box, and you need more space. It's just a lot more goes into it, and that's if subsidies go away, price of food is going to go up, and it's going to suck. But it balances out, and I need to know that my loaf of bread should not cost 99 cents. There's no way that should happen. Then maybe
Well, and that's the thing too. A lot of people fear the rise in costs of food, and that's partially because they haven't seen the inflation from subsidies. And this is something common that people are talking about minimum wage now. Well, inflation isn't always felt in the rising of prices, but it's also felt in preventing prices from falling. And so if we were due for a market correction this year in agriculture, well, our prices could stay the same, but if we don't go through that correction, then that's a form of inflation still. And a lot of people don't think about that. And so, but yeah, then our pork's just also more expensive because of the genetics. They're very big on the meat quality. And so it's going to be a more red pork than you're used to tasting. You really taste it in the bacon and the hams. And it's just a fattier pig. So,
Yeah, what kind of pigs do you raise?
mine are kind of mutts. I can see a lot of Duroc and Hamp in them, and they kind of look like an old odd breed called Landry from the 80s. I'm not exactly sure what particularly they are, but kind of a mix. They call them heritage breed pork, though, is the line of genetics we get it out of. And so they're kind of an odd, like all my buddies who are pig farmers, they tell me they're the ugliest pigs they've seen, but they that's just because the modern genetics and conventional pork, it's bred to put on the most amount of meat as fast as possible. So it's a very lean, very white meat from the USDA's propaganda campaign when they were pushing white meat was good for you, so pork's good for you. And so that's what pork's supposed to be, a darker red meat. And we're used to seeing it be white because of that marketing campaign, which is another thing the government screwed up.
Imagine that.
Yep.
Oh, man.
It goes so deep.
Get some American cheese to put on my white pork chop.
Oh, yeah. It goes so deep and it's so frustrating too, because when I talk about ending subsidies, people take that on its face as just ending subsidies. And I'm like, you got to look at the whole picture. If we got government out of agriculture, and, that's what these packers fear is deregulation. They love the regulation. They've gotten big from it. And so what if we broke those up and that allowed farmers to make more money? What if that big farmer who's, farming 10,000 acres now, thanks to subsidies, what if this year when corn goes back down to $2 and he's way over leveraged, well, he's going to go out of business. Well, then there's 10,000 acres on the local economy that us young guys would have a chance at. And because that's the other thing farmers don't get, is they think with subsidies are what's helping young and small guys like me get into the business. But I always point out to them, well, subsidies keep increasing, and so does the average age and the average size of farms. So that doesn't really bear out that it's helping the young and small guys.
Right. Yeah, I forget where. I remember seeing something one time about like subsidies and who they went to, and the top 5 or whatever. And it's just like really, like that company, that whoever that's making like that much money, they're that size, like they're getting more money for it. Like, it's wild.
Well, like my senator Chuck Grassley, I think he's a senator, but he's a big up there with the subsidies in Washington, and he still farms. And he gets his $200,000 subsidy check mailed to Washington, D.C., which, boy, if that's not a conflict of interest right there.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's pretty frustrating.
That's hilarious. That's funny. Yeah, and that's why they all walk out of Congress 15 years later millionaires, right? Because they game the crap out of that system. But
yep.
Anyway, man, I appreciate it, and I don't know, maybe I have to get you on sometime in the future, talk about your homeschool career. Why not? But
yeah, that'd be cool.
I'll set it up and get you back here. But man, I appreciate your time tonight, and wish you luck with everything in your farm there, and getting the ideas out there to the people that need to hear them. So
yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, that was fun, huh? So much stuff there. You never really, you don't realize it until you actually sit down and think about it. And thinking about it is not something that people do regularly, right? It just isn't. I hope it made you guys think, and I hope it gives you some things to build conversations around, because those are big things to talk about. Bedrock type things. I think everybody has to find food somehow, and to have that conversation is a good one to have. Anyway, thank you guys for showing up. If you haven't left a review, go leave a review. If you haven't checked out the new coffee Run Your Mouth Coffee, that little ad you heard in the middle this week and last week, go and check that out. RYMcoffee.com. What else have I got for you? homesteadsandhomeschools.com/Amazon. I think I've told you guys every episode of all the things that I've remembered to do through every episode. It's been to tell you that. Go there, homesteadsandhomeschools.com/Amazon, and buy your Amazon junk through there. And I get pennies. But hey, you're gonna buy stuff there anyway. You might as well, take some of their profits away and give them to somebody else, right? Anyway, guys, yeah, I think that's it for today. Another episode next Tuesday, and we'll see. It may be an interview. It may just be me rambling. I don't know. It's been a busy month, I tell you. Busy month. And I may get into that. Yeah, and also I've started uploading some videos onto the YouTube, but more particularly onto Odyssey. Go check that out. Those links will be in the show notes. You can get an idea of some of the things happening around here. And you get to see my pretty face, because who doesn't want to see that? Anyway, guys, that's all for this week. Remember, get out there, sow those seeds of liberty. We can all reap sheaves of freedom together. I'm gonna ride us his dream.